Undercover Millionaire becomes homeless for a bet with his friend, a challenge that will change his life in 24 hours. Jason and David, two wealthy millionaires, were strolling down the sidewalk on their way to grab coffee when they encountered a homeless man sitting against the wall, his eyes pleading for food and money. His clothes were ragged, and his face was weathered by the streets. Jason, always the compassionate one, instinctively stopped, reaching into his pocket for his wallet. "Hey man, do you need something?" Jason asked gently, ready to offer some help. But before he could pull out any cash, David grabbed his arm and yanked him back. "Don't waste your money on them," David said, his voice cold. "They don't want to work. They want the easy life, doing nothing." Jason stared at him, his brow furrowing. "Are you serious? You think it's easy to live like that? Sleeping on the ground, begging for scraps just to survive? You really don't get it, do you?" David scoffed, brushing off the comment. "I get it, all right. They choose this life. They could do something if they wanted. I worked hard for my money. They should too." Jason's face grew serious as he took a step closer to David. "You really don't understand. They're people, just like us. You have no idea what it's like to have nothing, to wake up every day with no hope of a better life." David crossed his arms, a smirk growing on his face. "Oh, please, they could get off their lazy butts and work if they really wanted to. It's their choice to be out here." Jason's eyes narrowed, a challenge igniting in him. "All right then, I'll make you a bet. Spend 24 hours as a homeless person. No money, no phone, no nothing. If you survive, I'll buy you a brand new Porsche." David's expression shifted. He chuckled, clearly amused. 24 hours? Are you kidding me? This is the easiest bet of my life. You're on. I'll show you how easy it is. Jason watched him, his face hardening with resolve. "You think it's that simple? I don't think you'll last 5 hours. But if you somehow make it through, I'll give you the Porsche. But if you fail, you'll have to spend the whole day in a place that will change everything you believe about the world." David laughed, already confident. "Deal. This is going to be fun. Before we continue, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't want to miss the rest of this incredible journey." And just like that, the bet was made. Jason handed David some old, ragged clothes. David dressed reluctantly, believing he could endure the hardship for just a day. Confidence exuded from him as he strutted down the street, thinking he could easily fake being homeless. But as the hours dragged on, David realized just how wrong he was. His confidence began to falter as he walked into a small cafe, hoping to get a sandwich. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him just how hungry he was. He approached the counter with a smile, ready to charm his way through this. "I'll take a turkey sandwich and a coffee, please," David said smoothly, his tone friendly, as if ordering in any restaurant he usually frequented. The cafe owner looked him up and down, his face hardening. "Get out," the owner barked, his voice stern. "No handouts for you. We don't serve people like you here." David froze, taken aback by the harshness. "Wait, what? I just need a meal. I'll pay you back tomorrow. I swear. Just give me something." The cafe owner shook his head, his face unchanging. "Not here. Go. You're wasting my time." David stood there, confused and humiliated. His mouth went dry as he tried to comprehend what just happened. "You can't be serious. Go!" The owner's voice rang out louder, forcing David to back away. The world didn't look so kind when he wasn't surrounded by wealth. He tried another shop, but it was the same. He stepped outside, his confidence cracking as he watched people go about their business, oblivious to his presence. The sting of rejection hit him harder than he expected, and for the first time that day, he felt powerless. His stomach twisted in hunger, and his mind raced with frustration. "What the hell is going on?" he muttered, glancing around at the busy street. He tried to smile, hoping the warmth of the sun might ease his discomfort, but the coldness of the world around him only seemed to grow. He walked aimlessly down the block, wondering how much longer he could last. His body was starting to feel the strain, his hunger becoming unbearable. The frustration built, but the more he tried to shake it off, the more it consumed him. With a heavy sigh, David slumped down on a bench, looking at the people walking by, lost in their own worlds. The sound of laughter, casual conversation, and footsteps filled his ears. To them, he didn't exist. It wasn't just hunger, it was the overwhelming feeling of being invisible, of not mattering. His pride, once so strong, had been shattered. As he sat there, feeling the weight of the world press down on him, he couldn't help but wonder how long he could keep up this charade. Hours passed. Jason was nowhere to be found, and David's pride, once so strong, began to slowly chip away. His stomach growled incessantly, and the reality of his situation began to sink in. He was hungry, he was alone, and most importantly, he was invisible. Desperate for some relief, David spotted a public restroom nearby and made his way toward it, hoping to freshen up, even if just for a moment. As soon as he stepped inside, he was met by the harsh glare of a janitor. "Get out! You can't be in here!" the janitor shouted, his voice sharp and unforgiving. David froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He hadn't even made it to the sink yet. "I just need to wash my face, please. Just a minute." But the janitor wasn't having it. With an angry scowl, he shoved David back toward the door. "Out!" David stumbled back onto the street, his face reddening with humiliation. The door slammed behind him, the sound echoing in his ears. He stood there for a moment, disoriented, feeling the sting of rejection all over again. With nowhere else to go, he wandered down the sidewalk, eventually finding a corner where he sank to the ground, his back against the cold brick of a nearby building. His mind raced, but his pride, that once unshakable force, had crumbled. He buried his face in his hands, the overwhelming weight of the day's cruelty pressing on him. How had it all come to this? Still determined not to let the bet defeat him, David's gaze fell on a recycling machine outside a store. Hope sparked for a fleeting moment. Maybe this would be his chance. He scavenged nearby plastic bottles, his fingers trembling as he stuffed them into his arms, desperate to make something work. He shuffled over to the machine, praying it would be the solution to his hunger, his frustration, his feeling of being utterly powerless. As he approached the machine, the shop owner standing nearby saw him coming and immediately sneered. "You can't do that here. This isn't a trash pickup service," the owner barked, his voice dismissive and condescending. David's blood began to boil. He couldn't believe it. All he was doing was trying to survive. Survive like everyone else had told him to do. "I'm just trying to survive," he shouted, his voice cracking with a mix of anger and desperation. "Let me recycle. It's not a crime." The shop owner shrugged, his expression unwavering. "Not my problem," he said coldly before turning away and walking back into the store. David's hands clenched into fists at his sides, the humiliation of being dismissed and disregarded cutting deeper than he expected. As he stood there seething, a passerby stopped, seeing the pile of bottles in David's arms. The man hesitated before offering to throw the bottles in for him. Desperation flashed across David's face. "Please, help me," he begged, his voice almost pleading. The man nodded and took the bottles, dropping them into the machine. The metal gears clanked as the machine dispensed a few coins. David's heart skipped a beat. Finally, he would get something, some small measure of relief. But the man didn't hand him the coins. Instead, he pocketed them with a casual shrug and walked off, leaving David standing there in stunned silence. David's chest tightened, his body frozen with disbelief. He had been so close to a moment of relief, even if it was just a few dollars. He stood there staring at the man's disappearing figure, the sting of the betrayal cutting through him like a knife. His hands shook with anger, but more than that, he felt utterly defeated. With nothing left to give, no pride to hold on to, David's mind raced back to the bet. How long could he keep going like this? The harsh reality of being homeless had shattered every illusion he had about how easy it could be. And for the first time, a crushing sense of helplessness washed over him. Maybe I'm not going to make it after all. Hours turned into a nightmare. David had no money, no food, and no shelter. His pride was beginning to break. He limped to the back of a restaurant where the trash bins were overflowing. He reached in, hoping for any scraps. But before he could take a bite, a waiter came rushing out. "Hey, get away from there!" the waiter shouted. David's eyes widened in panic. "I'm just hungry. I need something to eat." "Not in my restaurant." The waiter reached out to shove him, and David, desperate, turned to flee. But his foot caught on a step, and he crashed to the ground, pain shooting through his wrist. He gritted his teeth, clutching his broken hand. His pride was shattered. David stumbled into a free clinic, his wrists throbbing with every step. He approached the receptionist, his voice shaking. "Please, I think I've broken my wrist. Can you help?" The receptionist barely glanced up. "We're full. Come back later." David's chest tightened, and he looked down at his swollen wrist, feeling the pain intensify. "Please, I need help," he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. The receptionist's gaze was cold. "No room for you," she said, her tone dismissive. David's heart sank. The pain in his wrist seemed insignificant compared to the crushing feeling of being invisible, ignored, rejected. With a deep breath, he turned and left, the weight of the world bearing down on him. He was alone. No one cared. Defeated, David returned to the same trash bin, his hunger unbearable. Every part of him ached, physically and emotionally. He had lost everything: his pride, his dignity, his understanding of the world. He was ready to give up, to collapse under the weight of it all, when he saw a figure approach from the corner of his eye. It was the homeless man from earlier. The man silently handed David a sandwich, his face kind but weathered. David looked up, his eyes filled with disbelief. "Why are you helping me? I was awful to you." His voice trembled, the full weight of his past cruelty hitting him like a wave. The homeless man smiled softly, his eyes filled with understanding. "I know what it's like. I've been there too." There was no judgment in his voice, just empathy. David took the sandwich, his hands shaking, feeling the overwhelming surge of shame. As he held the food, a wave of guilt washed over him. All the cruelty, all the judgment he'd passed without ever knowing what it was truly like to be in their shoes. It all became painfully clear. His pride, his wealth, had made him blind. He had failed to see the human struggle beneath the surface, and now he felt the rawness of it in his own bones. He bit into the sandwich, the first real food he'd had in hours, but it didn't fill the emptiness inside. He realized just how wrong he had been, how blind he'd been to the lives of those he had looked down on. Judging these people without understanding them, it was one of the biggest mistakes of his life. The next morning, David called Jason. His voice was quiet, almost hesitant. "Meet me at this address tomorrow," he said, the urgency and sincerity in his tone surprising even him. When Jason arrived, he was puzzled. David stood outside an old rundown building. Inside, volunteers were bustling about, preparing meals and setting up tables. The place was filled with energy and purpose. Everything David had never expected in the world of homelessness. Jason's confusion deepened. "What's going on? You didn't win the bet. Where's my Porsche?" he asked, still unsure of what was happening. David smiled, a calm and steady look in his eyes that spoke of the transformation he had gone through. "I don't want the Porsche," he said, shaking his head gently. "I used my own money to open this place. A free food shelter for the homeless." Jason froze, eyes wide with shock, speechless for the first time. He watched as people who had been through the same struggles David experienced walked in, some with tears in their eyes. They had no idea how much David had learned in just 24 hours, how his perception had shifted, how his heart had opened. David looked around the shelter, his heart swelling with something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "No one should feel like they don't matter," he said, his voice steady. "I couldn't just walk away after what I went through." Jason, still processing the change before him, nodded slowly. "You did something amazing," he said, his voice thick with emotion. David turned back to the shelter, watching as the first person sat down at one of the tables. The world felt a little kinder now, and David knew he had made the right choice. The bet had started as a challenge, but what he learned in those 24 hours had changed his life forever. Sometimes stepping into someone else's shoes is the only way to truly understand them. What do you think about David's transformation? Let us know in the comments.